another very lovely evening on out there to all of you, my dear friends. I'm ever so thankful once again, as always, you all could join me. Thank you all very much. We left off in Jeremiah 5 with this verse, which completely summarizes what God sees as the totality of Judah's evil. As you can see right here, he talks about how the prophets are prophesying falsely and how the priests are corrupt. They want money and power over the people, and the people love to have it so. Which brings us to our first verse in chapter 6. O ye children of Benjamin, gather yourselves to flee out of the midst of Jerusalem, and blow the trumpet in Tekoa, and set up a sign of fire in Bethsarim. For evil appeareth out of the north, and great destruction. Now, as you'll see right here, not a lot of people know this, but just in case you don't, Benjamin right here, they were tied to Judah. All the other 10 tribes, they migrated north at the time of Rehoboam and Jeroboam, right after Solomon, hundreds of years before this. But Benjamin stayed with Judah, and Jerusalem was located in both parts, Benjamin and Judah. It's like the line that divided the two tribes. It ran right down the middle of Jerusalem. But this is a warning for the Benjamites to get out of this place before Nebuchadnezzar comes in. Jeremiah was himself a Benjamite, and Jerusalem was in Benjamin, the boundary between that tribe and Judah, lying in the valley of Hinnom to the south of the city. I have likened the daughter of Zion to a comely and delicate woman. The shepherds with their flocks shall come unto her. They shall pitch their tents against her round about. They shall feed every one in his place. Speaking of the Babylonians coming to besiege her. Now, there are many verses in the Bible in which have such a militant stance, but this right here is one of the most startling, especially at the time of King David and Saul. But right here is one of the most startling. Speaking of the attitude of the Babylonians and their haste to destroy Jerusalem. Prepare ye war against her. Arise, and let us go up at noon. Woe unto us, for the day goeth away, for the shadows of the evening are stretched out. Arise, and let us go by night, and let us destroy her palaces. This is a fervor to kill her. They're not just coming down there as, oh, this is part of the military campaign. No, it's like a vicious dog wanting a steak. They're wanting to completely devour her. The alacrity and eagerness with which the Chaldeans, or Babylonians, should undertake and execute the commission with which they were charged are described in these and the following words in a beautiful vein of poetry and vicious. Though it was late in the day before they received their orders, they are for beginning their march immediately, and though it was night before they got to the place, they are unwilling to put off the assault until morning. Because usually whenever the sun is going down, then the battles would, back in ancient times, because they didn't have electricity or lights, and fires would only stretch so far, so they couldn't see. This is telling how who cares if it's night or not? Let's go to war. Let's just fight. In the book of Habakkuk, we can read about how vicious that the attitude of these Babylonians were. This is strictly speaking about the Babylonians. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity shall proceed of themselves. Their horses are also swifter than the leopards, and are more fierce than the evening wolves. And their horsemen shall spread themselves, and their horsemen shall come from far. They shall fly as the eagle that hasteth to eat. For thus hath the Lord of hosts said, Hew ye down trees, and cast a mount against Jerusalem. This is the city to be visited. She is holy oppression in the midst of her. As a fountain casteth out her waters, so she casteth out her wickedness. Violence and spoil is heard in her. Before me continually is grief and wounds. This is the Lord bringing them over. But take note right here. The Lord says, get all your battlements ready. And then he says, for in Jerusalem, she is holy oppression in the midst of her. Meaning oppression runs rampant in this city. She is holy oppression. In the abstract, she doth nothing but oppress. There are found in her all kinds of oppression and injustice. Be thou instructed, O Jerusalem, lest my soul depart from thee, lest I make thee desolate, a land not inhabited. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall thoroughly glean the remnant of Israel as a vine. Turn back thine hand as a grape gatherer into the baskets. As if he had said, Come, ye Chaldeans, into my vineyard, collect the vintage, gather even to the very last grapes, the remnant of Israel as a vine. The prophet, by this, seems to express that all the remains of the Israelites who had escaped when the main body of them had been carried into captivity by the Assyrians, talking about the northern kingdom, and who had taken refuge in Judea and Jerusalem should also be carried away into captivity by the Babylonians. So not just the Jews should be afflicted, but also the remnant from the northern kingdom. This is almost just a complete reset. But the verse also says, turn back thy hand. That is, begin the work of gathering or gleaning anew. Return again after the first time and pick up those few inhabitants that were left before and carry them also into captivity. Thus the Chaldeans did, as may be seen in Jeremiah 52. To whom shall I speak and give warning that they may hear? Behold, their ear is uncircumcised, and they cannot hearken. Behold, the word of the Lord is unto them a reproach. They have no delight in it. Their ear is uncircumcised, covered as it were with a foreskin, which prevents the prophetic message from finding admittance. Elsewhere it is in the heart. Therefore I am full of the fury of the Lord. I am weary with holding in. I will pour it out upon the children abroad and upon the assembly of young men together. For even the husband with a wife shall be taken, the aged with him that is full of days. And their houses shall be turned unto others, with their fields and wives together. For I will stretch out my hand upon the inhabitants of the land, saith the Lord. For from the least of them, even unto the greatest of them, every one is given to covetousness. And from the prophet, even unto the priest, every one dealeth falsely. Now there is great significance. Now pay close attention to this. This is another aspect that I've already kind of alluded to, but this is another aspect of how there was such greed in the city. It wasn't just idolatry. It wasn't just the orgies that they were having or sacrificing unto Moloch, which we'll come to. But right here it says how they're given to covetousness, greedy of filthy lucre. Remember, the love of money is the root of all evil, and this made them oppressive. For of that evil, as well as others, the love of money is the bitter root. Nay, and this hardened their hearts against the word of God and his prophets. They were the covetous Pharisees that derided Christ. Remember how Christ, he says, you have turned the house of the Lord into a den of thieves? Well, that's actually spoken of in Jeremiah as well. So this was all about big business, all about money, corruption at the highest levels. They have held also the herd of the daughter of my people slightly, saying, Peace, peace, when there is no peace. Were they ashamed when they had committed abomination? Nay, they were not at all ashamed, neither could they blush. Therefore they shall fall among them that fall. At the time that I visit them, they shall be cast down, saith the Lord. Now in this verse, we're seeing right off how they have held also the herd of the daughter of my people slightly. Now that's not a compliment. That means you've barely done anything for the actual inward hurting of my people. As worthless surgeons, the religious leaders refuse to examine or probe the wounds of those who are under their charge, and for the sake of their own ease, assure their patients that all is well. The worst doctor is the one that'll tell you that you don't have cancer when you do. You know, to hear bad news is not a bad thing. That means maybe something can be, a medicine or a remedy can be given and you can be healed. Thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways, and see, and ask for the old paths. Where is the good way? And walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein. Also I set watchmen over you, saying, hearken to the sound of the trumpet. But they said, we will not hearken. I love this. This is one of the most fascinating verses, because it talks about how stand ye in the ways, and ask for the old path. Where's the good way? Now who's the way? That's Christ, meaning follow the Lord. And he also goes on and says, also, I set watchmen over you to warn them. The watchmen are, of course, the prophets blowing the trumpets of alarm, proclaiming, as in Jeremiah 6, the nearness of the invader and calling on them to flee from the wrath of Jehovah. They call, however, in vain. The people refuse to hearken. Therefore hear, ye nations, and know, O congregation, what is among them. Hear, O earth, behold, I will bring evil upon this people, even the fruit of their thoughts, because they have not hearkened unto my words, nor to my law, but rejected them. Now this is probably the greatest proclamation that could be made on the scale that God is putting it at. He is saying, I'm rejecting this people. And who is he calling on to hear? He says, hear ye nations, hear, O earth. Thus God pledges himself, as it were, in the sight of the whole world, that he will no longer forbear. To what purpose cometh there to me incense from Sheba, and the sweet cane from a far country? Your burnt offerings are not acceptable, nor your sacrifices sweet unto me. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, I will lay stumbling blocks before this people, and the fathers and the sons together shall fall upon them, and the neighbor and his friend shall perish. Notice right here it's talking about from Sheba. If you'll remember the queen of Sheba, she came up to visit Solomon to hear his wisdom. Well, that's what he's referring to right here. Thus saith the Lord, behold, a people cometh from the north country, and a great nation shall be raised from the sides of the earth. They shall lay hold on bow and spear. They are cruel, and have no mercy. Their voice roareth like the sea, and they ride upon horses, set in array as men for war against thee, O daughter of Zion. So now we hear the prophet kind of breaking in. We have heard the fame thereof. Our hands wax feeble. Anguish hath taken hold of us, and pain as of a woman in travail. Go not forth into the field, nor walk by the way, for the sword of the enemy and fear is on every side. O daughter of my people, gird thee with sackcloth, and wallow thyself in ashes. Take note of this. Wallow thyself in ashes. Make thee mourning as for an only son. Most bitter lamentation, for the spoiler shall suddenly come upon us. I have set thee for a tower and a fortress among my people, that thou mayest know and try their way. So he's calling upon them. Wallow in ashes as in mourning. Violent distress is accustomed to find relief in eccentric actions, and thus the wallowing in ashes shows that Jerusalem's grief is unbearable. They are all grievous revolters, walking with slanders. They are brass and iron. Catch this. Catch the imagery involved in these closing verses. They are brass and iron. They are all corrupters. The bellows are burned. The lead is consumed of the fire. The founder melteth in vain, for the wicked are not plucked away. Now, real quick analysis of what's being said right here. This is speaking of a refiner. And he says, you all are brass and iron. Base metals, serving for vile uses, this brass and iron, no gold or silver in them. And then he goes on and says, the bellows are burned, the lead is consumed of the fire, the founder melteth in vain, for the wicked are not plucked away. Using the picture of a refiner of precious metals, he shows that the normal processes had been completely inefficacious. The dross still remained, contaminating the whole mass of metal. It was therefore fit only for the scrap heap. Reprobate silver shall men call them, because the Lord hath rejected them. The usage of the word reprobate right here is quite telling. It takes years of evil and a buildup of evil in order for a reprobate mind to be given unto a man. That's the worst state that a man can possibly be in. He will never seek God if God gives him over to a reprobate mind. And now, my friends, we're beginning to see the reasons behind God sending these people into captivity and completely denying them of their freedoms, because it does them no good. I thank you all for joining me once again, my dear friends. Lord willing, we'll be getting into Jeremiah 7 very soon. God of peace, love, and